Thanksgiving coming up. If many of you, I'm sure many of you have been here and know kind of what we do every month, but in case any of you haven't, we regularly ask an artist to come and present a film that influenced them in some way. We have the artist introduce the film, and then we do a Q&A after discussion. It's not always becomes a Q&A, more often it just becomes a very interesting discussion, and we hope it will be tonight. After that, we go to Julius and have a drink and mix and mingle and talk about the film if we want, and that is over on West 10th and Waverly. So that's kind of like, after, if you're looking for something to do, we'll all be over there. My co-curator, Ira Sachs, who is normally here, is not here tonight. He was so inspired by last month's screening of The Thief of Baghdad that he booked himself a trip to Jordan to see the Arab world up close. And so that's where he is, and he sends his regards and regrets that he can't be here with us tonight. And before I introduce tonight's very special guest, Genesis P-Orridge, I have just a couple quick announcements. The IFC Center, who we love and who we thank for letting us have the event here every month, wants to remind everybody that if you purchase tickets with your credit card, you must bring your credit card to the theater, because that's the only way they can retrieve your tickets. So if you're buying them online, just make sure not to forget it at home. That's their announcement. And Poison, Todd Haynes' film, has been screening this week, and the last day is tomorrow. So if you haven't seen it yet, see it on the big screen, come tomorrow. I might be here too. And our next screening will be on December 13th. We'll be welcoming the lesbian poet Pamela Sneed to present the Agnes Varda's 1977 film, One Sings, the Other Doesn't, which is a rarely screened film about the kind of burgeoning friendship of two women over the sort of women's rights movement. And we hope to see you there. I know that we don't know what the film yet is for January, but a sneak preview of the person is we will be super, super happy to welcome all the way from San Francisco, Michelle T., who is also a poet and writer and leads the incredible sort of spoken word performance group Sister Spit. So we don't know what the film is yet, but that's who will be January. So now onto my introduction. I always have to read because I'm scattered without it. Tonight we welcome a truly visionary artist, and in saying this I mean not to denigrate or put down all of our previous guests at Queer Art Film, all of whom are extraordinarily talented, but I mean to acknowledge the profound legacy of our guest tonight, musician, singer, poet, artist, writer, performer, pioneer, cult leader, collaborator, lover, avant-garde anti-hero, as her website says, and wrecker of civilization, as the British Parliament once described her. A mark of honor in my book. Genesis P-Orridge. Genesis, in all her works, looks forward to the future, whether it be through her utterly innovative work as the leader of performance collective Coombe Transmissions, the band Psychic TV, and Throbbing Gristle. You've been listening to Psychic Gristle, Throbbing Gristle and Psychic TV both playing as you were entering the theater, which pioneered a whole sound and genre of music that later came to be known as industrial music. But it goes beyond and far beyond, and her experimentations in music and art just continue to evolve. Her work that most looks to the future is her collaboration with her late lover, the Lady J, with whom she applied the strategies of cutting up, learned from her longtime relationship with the artists Brian Geisen and William S. Burroughs, to the human body. She and Lady J began having plastic surgery, to hormone treatments, and altering their behavior to resemble each other as much as possible, becoming a new embodiment of the future of civilization, the Pandragine, as she coined the term. P-Orridge. This idea of becoming so like your partner that you moved from two separate selves to a single one turns many of our preconceived notions about gender, transgendered identity, and queerness on his ear, but it's also a fantastic metaphor to me for the love that can be shared between two people. For Genesis, art is life, and life is art and death. She has been a thorn in the craw of the conservative establishment for many a year. The British government suppressed and confiscated much of her work, and as a child, she spent many a year being tortured in the British public school system, like the one we'll see in tonight's film. Despite all this, her work has been and continues to be influential on so many people, and if you're not familiar with her work, I really urge you to take the plunge and start investigating. I was watching a terrific interview with Genesis and the members of Throbbing Gristle that's on UbuWeb, and a quote by Genesis struck me as an appropriate one to mention tonight. She said, "When artists see the breakdown of hope, it's their job to try and inspire people again. Here to inspire us and help us be inspired by, please join me in welcoming our headmistress for the evening, Genesis P-Orridge."
Wow. This is unusual for us to do this. We try and remember to say we, not I, because this body represents two people, myself and Lady J, one in the material world, one in the immaterial world, but both just as real as each other, so we don't always get it right. It's a discipline we're learning. It was very easy to pick a film, actually. The first time we watched this, since it first came out, was with Lady J in Brooklyn a few years ago. And we put the film on. We said, if you want to know what it was like for me to be at school, the best way is to see this film. And we started to watch it, and after about 10 minutes I just started crying. And I cried and I cried and I sobbed. And she said, "What's wrong?" We said, "You have no idea how much it hurt." And she said, "You should get over it. It was years ago. What's your problem?" And we said, "You weren't there." So when you watch this film, it's about a British public school. In Britain, private schools are called public schools. And you have to either be very rich or from a very privileged family, or occasionally, as in my case, you get a scholarship from the government to be the token pleb, the lower middle class person that shows that they're being democratic, which is actually a horrible place to be. So we went there with no idea how cruel it could be. The first day we got to school, we had to wear this horrible grey woolen suit with lace-up shoes and a tie, and we sat down and they took our names in the classroom, and then a bell went off and everyone disappeared. And we looked around and we thought, well, where's everyone gone? So we started to walk around the school looking, and eventually we bumped into one of the teachers and said, "Excuse me, sir, do you know where everyone is?" And he said, "Don't be so stupid, child. They're all in the church." And we said, "The church?" And this school actually had its own church that was paid for by Queen Elizabeth II. That's how posh it was. So he grabbed me and dragged me with him through these various corridors to this church in the grounds, into the church. And in the church, the entire school was sitting in all the pews, and all the teachers and all the staff. And the service was going, and when we came through the door with a big crash, everything went silent. And I don't know if you could imagine what that was like at 14, but it wasn't nice. Then he dragged me down the middle of the church with everyone staring at me to the front near the altar. And he said, "What class are you in?" And we said, lower 5-2, sir." He went, "No, you're not. You're far too small and young to be in that class. You're in the preschool. You should be with them." And he dragged me across to the front of the school where the 8 to 9 and 10-year-olds were and made me sit there. And then he pointed out and he said, "Don't you move. That's where you belong." That was giving permission to an entire school to pick on me and bully me and torment me indefinitely, which is what happened. After the church service was ended, there was what's called a break, and we were wandering around trying to find our classroom again, and we got jumped on a staircase and beaten and kicked until we were unconscious. And then every day for 2 years we were attacked and beaten. One of my friends was asked to write a poem for his English homework, and the bullies of the school found out and beat him so badly they ruptured his appendix, and he had to get emergency surgery in a hospital in order to survive. The people who beat him up were the sons of the rich people who helped to finance the school, so no punishment ever happened. The other thing you need to know in advance with this film is these schools do have weapons, not just violence, but also they have a combined cadet force, so you're trained to join the armed forces. In our case, Monday afternoon and Saturday afternoon was Army training or Air Force training or Navy training. We had 25-pounder artillery guns. We had mortars, heavy machine guns, hundreds of .303 rifles, snipers' guns, Sten guns, everything in this big armory which we'd be taught to play with and to fire. We even had our own rifle range. And we were checking with somebody when this film was made because we wanted to see if our school copied the film or not. Because in 1968, the same people who would beat people to death or nearly to death also raided the armory of the school and tried to steal the weapons, and when they couldn't get them, they set it on fire to try and blow it up. And again, they had no punishment. That's where we learned the British power structure. And that's where we also say we learned who our enemy was. The privilege and the power and the violence. It works very simply. The people who are the oldest, 16 to 18, are allowed to capital punish you. They can beat you for no reason. They can just pick you out and say, come to our study and get beaten. And they can beat you with a cane or a whip or anything they choose for as long as they choose. They can also make you crawl around on your knees on the concrete. They can do anything they want. So when you watch this film, please be aware that this is actually a watered down version of what really happens. The people that we were with at school would laugh at this because it's not violent enough. But it does give you an idea of the way the British Empire was formed. They say that this way of being taught at school gives you strength of character, and it's where the leaders of the future are made. And luckily, we went to the right school. So enjoy this as far as you can. Remember that it's true, and then try and multiply it by 10. And that's what it was really like. And that's how it influenced me. It made me very, very angry about those people. And that's what's given me this energy all this time. So please enjoy If, and we will happily answer questions afterwards.